boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm ForClassic and welcome to BenchART. So for today, what I do have in here, it is Immortals Fenyx Rising, a game developed by Ubisoft Quebec, and it is using the typical Ubisoft engine, Next 2.0, which is usually the engine that most of the people say, oh, it's an optimized mess. So yeah, it is a demanding game above all. So like I told you, this is developed by Ubisoft Quebec. Ubisoft Quebec were the previous developers of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and we can see a lot of elements of this game, in this Fenyx Rising. Alright, but first let's take a look on the settings that I'm actually playing. This is my personal preference though. I will be playing at 1080p and I will be using a custom median setting. So what I did change, it is just I enabled anti-aliasing at low and I decided to raise textures to very high because it can fit inside the 4GB of VRAM buffer. So looking to the requirements of this game, yeah, it's pretty much this. I really love the way that developers now publish their requirements. So 1080p 30 frames per second, they do recommend the GTX 970. The 1650 Super, it should be slightly above the 970 and the 1060. And for 1080p 60 frames per second, you need a GTX 1070 for 60 frames per second at high settings. So I was obviously not expecting to run the game at 60 frames per second at the high settings. So at the high settings I got an average of 54 with a 1% low of 34. It was quite distracting, so every time I looked a big vista, I've noticed really a big drop to around the 30s to 40s. So I decided to go with my own median preset over there. And by doing that, I was able to enjoy the game overall above 60 frames per second, but in those big vistas where the frame rate usually drops to 30 to 40, I get pretty much 50 to 60, so it's much more manageable and the game still looks awesomely fine around the 60 frames per second, which is awesome. So also other settings that you might prefer, it would be 1080p low settings, which should provide you an experience above 60 frames per second. And if you want to go above 30, you can go with 1080p maximum settings or 1080p high settings or even 1440p median settings. That should do it above 30. 1440p high settings, it just starts to drop massively under the 30 frames per second in those moments where you have those great vistas which the game really likes to display overall. It just doesn't really need entirely for you to be over a tower or something overviewing the entire map. No, if you are on a higher vantage point and you look to a point where you have a lot of terrain, the drop will appear nonetheless. So that's why my recommendation for this game, it is the median settings or my customizable setting to use textures on very high or high and dropping down the anti-aliasing to low. That's my way to play. Actually, the real way that I like to play, it is VSync at 60 frames per second or even 50 frames per second if I have my monitor set up to 50 Hz, which is a possibility that I have. And use adaptive quality. By using adaptive quality, the game adjusts the anti-aliasing on fly according to your frame rate. So it's pretty useful in my opinion, but it is entirely up to you of the settings that you decide to use. So one thing that I want to mention is that this game looks very good whatever the setting you go for, unless you go with very low. Whatever, if you go with low, medium, high or very high, as long as you have your textures, alright, at high or medium or very high, your experience will be great. As soon as you put the game at very low, it just destroys entirely the visuals. But this game, even at low settings, it does look pretty good. So I think that's all that I want to talk about the technical part and overall the performance that you can expect on a GTX 1650 Super. So for many people, I'm pretty sure this will be confusing because they will see that this game, it is pretty demanding and it doesn't make any sense. Some people will compare it to Zelda Breath of the Wild or even Genshin Impact. But the reality, it is that whatever the visuals that you are having, you are running this game inside the Anvil Next 2.0. And you are having all these great vistas, all this day and night cycle that Ubisoft have on their Assassin's Creed games. They are here, even the volumetric clouds. So it's pretty much the same power being pulled off from the PC, because it's mostly the same engine and it has the same type of the same type of map, the same type of effects. The difference is, this time around, this is more cartoonish, Zelda Breath of the Wild style. But the demanding of the PC, it is pretty much the same. Alright, well, that's about it. So now talking a little bit about the game. Well, I just played the game throughout 1 hour and a half, which is not much, so I don't have too much to tell. But the first impressions that I have after playing 1 hour and a half is that this game, it is not to be taken serious. The cutscenes, there is some light tone in here. Sometimes you even going to laugh a little bit with some of the weird jokes that they make about the gods. So it's funny. All right, it's a funny game overall. It is not to be taken serious. And gameplay-wise, it kind of mixes up Zelda Breath of the Wild with Assassin's Creed. So, wherever this game it is light-toned, or whatever this looks like Zelda or Breath of the Wild, but plays a little bit like a Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the reality, alright, it is that it can be challenging. So don't go buy this game expecting this to be very easy to play. No, it is not entirely easy. Of course, the game offers different levels of difficulty. You have the story mode, the low difficulty too, and that is also medium, that is high difficulty, and there is another one which I don't remember its name. But I'm playing at normal. Sometimes I had a little bit of a challenge with some Cyclops, and it might not be that easy if you buy this game, for example, for a small kid that you have in your home, like with 6 or 7 years old, is going to die. This game have a lot of puzzles, which are interesting, and there is a lot of telekinesis power, at least on this 1 hour and a half, and it's quite interesting for you to kind of beat your enemies, not only with telekinesis, but with your own powers, and mixed up with sword attacks. So I was really enjoying the game. I think it's a good game overall, but my disappointment comes with the fact that Ubisoft seems to be able to make games like open world games with slight RPG elements. Yes, it's a little bit different than your typical Assassin's Creed, not only visually because it brings a lot of stuff from Zelda, but still the formula continues to be the same. The gameplay loop continues to be more and less Assassin's Creed-ish. So you are just buying a different Assassin's Creed that brings stuff from Zelda. That's my perspective that I had for 1 hour and a half. 1 hour and a half, it is nothing to judge about a game. I know that, but that's the time that I did spend benchmarking the game. Ubisoft games usually are enormous, gigantic. They can take up to 100 hours or more. So my judgment about this game in 1 hour and a half represents nothing. Alright, it's just the thing that I feel while playing this game. But you can go and visit Metacritic and you can search up a little bit online. I do recommend you to watch ACG reviews. They are very good, very insight. It's his own opinion, but he explains a lot about the game. You can also check up on GameRanks for full reviews or full opinions about the game. That's the opinions that I usually like to visit, so feel free to do it. But yeah, that's overall my opinion about the game, and I'm enjoying it. Despite on Metacritic, the scores of this game, it is around 77. It's just, again, disappointing because it's just Ubisoft only knows how to make these games, and I'm growing a little bit tired of their open world-ish Assassin's Creed style over and over and over again. It's insanity, like in Far Cry 3, alright? It's insanity. They are always doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm a little bit disappointed that Ubisoft can't create something really new. Alright, so guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about Immortals Fenyx Rising, formerly known as Gods and Monsters. Hope you keep enjoying the rest of the video, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
I just thought you were a badly dressed statue. here we come. Right back where we started from.
Kind of
Thank
jealous
the
of
gods.
I hope you
Now
know
I
how to
can
fight
hide behind
because I
you.
really
I mean, join
didn't
forces.
get the tutorial.